Every Friday at 4 p.m., a wire transfer of $11,200 lands in Tomas Reyes's personal account. It has landed there every Friday for 6 years, without fail, without a phone call, without so much as a text message attached. You are the one who signs off on it, and you have never once asked why. Because you already know why. Tomas owns 49% of the company. He has for 11 years, and in that entire time, he has walked through the front door exactly 4 times. You are Dominic Alves. You are 39 years old. You run a commercial refrigeration and HVAC service company out of a warehouse on the east side of town, 22 employees, $3.1 million in annual revenue, and a business partner who is, functionally, a ghost. Here's how it started. You and Tomas grew up 2 houses apart. His family had money. Yours didn't, and by the time you were both 24, that gap had already shaped everything about how the 2 of you moved through the world. You wanted to start a refrigeration repair business. You had the technical skill, the licenses, 18 months of experience under a guy who ran his own shop and was about to retire. What you didn't have was $60,000 in startup capital. Tomas had it sitting in a savings account, inherited, untouched, doing nothing. You asked him for a loan. He countered with something different. Not a loan, an investment. He'd put in the $60,000. In exchange, he'd take 49% of the company forever, structured as an LLC membership interest. No board seat, no operational input, no obligation to show up. Just a percentage. At 24, that felt like an insane deal to turn down. At 35, it started to feel like something else entirely. The first 3 years, it made sense to you. Tomas's money bought the first 2 service vans, covered payroll during a brutal first winter when 3 major clients paid late, and got you through a $40,000 equipment repair that would have sunk the business if you'd had to finance it. You called him monthly back then. He listened, said, "Sounds like you've got it handled," and hung up. By year 5, you'd stopped calling monthly. There wasn't much to report that he seemed to want to hear, and honestly, there wasn't much he could meaningfully weigh in on. He'd never worked a service call. He didn't know the difference between a compressor and a condenser. What he knew was that a wire transfer landed in his account every Friday, calculated off gross revenue, and that the number had grown steadily larger every single year. By year 8, the business had grown enough that his 49% stopped being a rounding error and started being real money. Real money that you were sending to a man who, as far as you could tell, spent most of his time managing a small real estate portfolio his father had left him and didn't appear to think about the refrigeration company at all outside of Friday afternoons. This is the part that's hard to explain to people outside of it. You're not angry exactly. Tomas never lied to you. He never promised to show up. The deal was the deal from day one, and you agreed to it with your eyes open at 24 because $60,000 was the difference between starting the company and not starting it at all. But there's a specific kind of exhaustion in watching someone collect nearly half of everything you build with your hands while never once seeing what building it actually costs.
You've calculated it more than once, late at night, the number you shouldn't calculate. Since year 1, Tomas has been paid out just under $2.3 million, total, across 11 years. He put in $60,000 once and never touched anything again. Your operations manager, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Farida, who's been with you for 7 years, doesn't know the full structure. She knows there's a silent partner. She's never met him. When new hires ask who the other guy is, whose name is on the LLC filing next to yours, the honest answer, delivered with a shrug, is an investor from a long time ago. Most people stop asking after that. Your accountant, Whit, has watched the Friday transfers happen for 11 years and has never once commented on them beyond confirming the calculation is correct. It's not his job to have an opinion. It's his job to make sure the math is right. And the math has always been right. That's the maddening part. Nothing about this arrangement is a mistake. It's working exactly the way it was designed to work. The moment that cracked something open happened 14 months ago. A commercial client, a regional grocery chain with 6 locations, had a compressor failure at their flagship store on a July weekend. 94 degrees outside, walk-in coolers full of product starting to turn. You personally drove out at 2 a.m., diagnosed the failure, sourced a part from a supplier 2 hours away who agreed to open early as a favor, and had the system running again by 9 a.m. You saved the client roughly $80,000 in spoiled inventory and, more importantly, saved the relationship. That client now accounts for 14% of your annual revenue.
You told Tomas about it, mostly out of habit, in a text he didn't respond to for 3 days. When he finally did, it was 4 words. Nice, glad it worked out. Then, that Friday, his transfer landed as usual, a transfer that, because of the additional revenue that grocery client now represented, was $340 higher than it had been the month before. You sat with your phone in your hand for a long time that night. Not because you were owed an apology, not because Tomas had done anything wrong on paper, but because it crystallized something you'd been avoiding looking at directly for years. Every hour you spend, every 2 a.m. drive you make, every relationship you personally maintain with clients who trust your face and your judgment generates value that gets split 51-49 with a person who has never once seen what any of it looks like up close. You called your lawyer, a careful woman named Renata, and asked for the first time in 11 years whether the agreement could be renegotiated. She read through the original operating agreement, the one you'd both signed at a kitchen table when you were 24 and didn't fully understand what perpetual membership interest meant. Her answer was calm and direct. Legally, no. Tomas's 49% wasn't a loan with a payoff date. It was ownership, and ownership doesn't expire because one partner works harder than the other. You could try to buy him out if he was willing to sell, but that would mean paying him a lump sum reflecting the current value of 49% of a $3.1 million company, which Renata estimated, conservatively, somewhere north of $1.4 million.
You didn't have $1,400,000. Not liquid, not close. So you did the only thing that felt like it might actually change something. You asked Tomas to meet in person for the first time in 3 years, not over the phone, not through a text. He agreed, mildly surprised, and you sat across from him at a diner near his house, the kind of place neither of you had been to since you were teenagers. You told him everything, the 2 a.m. drives, the clients who called you directly, by name, at all hours, the employees who depended on decisions you made alone, decisions Tomas had never once weighed in on because he'd never been asked to and never asked to be. You didn't accuse him of anything, you just laid it out plainly, the way you'd laid out a broken compressor to a worried store manager 100 times before. Tomas listened the whole way through without interrupting, which surprised you. And when you finished, he said something you didn't expect. He said he knew. He'd always known his percentage was, in his words, disproportionate to what I actually do. He said the $60,000 felt to him like the easiest, most obvious investment he'd ever make, and that some part of him had been waiting for years for you to say something, because he'd never known how to bring it up without it sounding like he was trying to take more.
That conversation didn't end with a new contract. It ended with something smaller, and in its own way, harder. Tomas agreed to start showing up, not operationally, not as a technician, but he started coming to quarterly reviews. He started actually reading the financials with scent instead of glancing at the bottom line. 6 months ago, he offered, unprompted, to restructure his percentage down to 35%, with the difference converting into a formal loan you could pay off over time at a modest interest rate, freeing up more of the company's growth for the person actually growing it. You're 2 payments into that new arrangement now. It's not resolved, not entirely. Tomas still doesn't know what a compressor sounds like when it's failing. He still didn't answer that 2 a.m. text about the grocery chain crisis until 3 days later. But the Friday transfer is smaller now, meaningfully smaller, and for the first time in 11 years, it feels less like tribute and more like an actual agreement between 2 people who finally said the quiet part out loud. Farida still doesn't know the full story. Most of your employees never will. To them, the man whose name sits quietly on the LLC filing next to yours is still just an investor from a long time ago, which, in its own strange way, has finally become true.